You were saying under 5 microwatts per meter squared is safe.
That's correct.
Yeah. And we're out here and we're getting
140, 180, 190.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a massive order of magnitude higher.
And by 5:30, I don't know what time it is now, but by 5:30,
close.
Those readings will be higher
Because everybody's using their phones.
Using their phones.
Holy shit.
It's amazing.
Holy shit.
Sorry about the shaky camera, guys. We're on the road right now. I have been for 5 hours. I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia today to meet up with a man named Curtis Stone, but you may know him on YouTube as the Urban Farmer. And the reason why I took the time to drive all the way out here to meet up with Curtis today is because he is doing something that I find incredible. I think it's very forward-thinking. I think he's going to be seen as a pioneer. Some people may call him crazy. I think it's incredibly smart. He is 5G proofing his house. We're talking about an electromagnetic resistant paint. He's going to be redoing the windows, redoing the ceiling, and completely making his entire home resistant to electromagnetic frequencies. We're also going to be speaking with an EMF expert, a man who understands how these electromagnetic frequencies affect our health, our psyche, and why we don't want these to be entering our bodies, and why it's a good idea to 5G proof your entire home. So stick around, guys. We're on our way to the Urban Farmer's home, Curtis Stone, to watch him 5G proof his household. All right, we made it. We're here at the home of the Urban Farmer, Curtis Stone. Man, thank you so much for having me here. It's so unbelievably important and cool what you are doing right here, right now, 5G proofing this house. This is amazing. Tell us a little bit about what's going on right here, right now, because it looks like there's a layer of paint going on.
Yeah, so right now we're painting the house with this product called Y-Shield, which is made in Germany. And it's basically has these like nanoparticles in it. But the basic idea is it's going to make our house a dead zone for Wi-Fi, cell signals, radio frequencies, 5G, most importantly. So you won't even be able to get a cell signal in the house. That's the idea. And so right now we're painting this stuff on, and then we're going to cover it with just normal house paint after that, so the house isn't black. And after that, we're actually going to we're re-roofing in the summer, and so it's kind of like perfect opportunity to do this. Then we're laying down an aluminum screen, basically a mesh, under the roof, and then we're re-roofing from there. And so basically our house will be like super tight, no signals coming in.
Isn't that similar to what they call, I think it's called a Faraday cage, or is that something different?
I think so. That's a similar thing. I think that I've seen that before with like copper wire and stuff like that. I think that's what you're talking about. It's similar. And it's not as uncommon as you think. Like, I've met some really rich people that have been into this stuff for a long time that have been doing this. So it's not, maybe these products are becoming more accessible, because it wasn't that expensive. Like, to buy the paint for this was like $1,000, and we actually won't even use all of it. So, I mean, and then when we do redo the screen and all that, that might be another couple thousand. So if all in all I spend $3,000 to proof my house, that's a damn good investment. The next thing we're going to do is we're putting a film on the windows. And then the whole thing is done, because we actually put aluminum screen behind the trim too. Mm-hmm. So like every bit of this house is buttoned up from EMR, EMF. Yeah.
Now, some might wonder why would there be a need to do such a thing, and I can point to a million examples. I mean, we just had police being caught using the Stingray devices to spy on people's devices without a warrant and things of that nature. But we also have this thing called 5G coming down the road. Oh, yeah. So talk a little bit about some of the reasons on why you're doing this. I assume privacy, health, maybe you can get into it. What are some of the aspects of 5G that concern you?
Well, the biggest aspect is my children, and they say children, because their skulls are so thin, are a lot more susceptible to this. So that was like probably the biggest motivator. We had a home birth, and we're going to have another home birth if all goes well, and we want our children to be born into an environment that's healthy and safe. And so that's the biggest motivator. I mean, the 5G is certainly one thing. The nice thing about 5G is that it's still, there are people pushing back on it, and it's not rolled out in Canada, or at least in British Columbia. I haven't seen any 5G. In the US, though, it's everywhere, at least in Arizona and California, the last two states I spent a lot of time in, and it's everywhere. I don't know if it's being used yet, but those millimeter waves are dangerous. I mean, it's not hard to actually find very good, credible scientific evidence on this stuff. I went and saw a scientist speak in Kelowna. This was a number of years ago. I forget his name, but Ross Anderson, who we'll probably talk to, he knows who he is. And anyways, this guy worked for the Canadian military for 30 or 40 years in the electromagnetic weapons department. And this was about the smart meter thing when they were rolling those out. And the evidence that he presented, and it was all based on true science, was terrifying. And so basically I'm just like, it's not worth it to me to take the risk. And we're going into a world of, they call the Internet of Things. And so everything is going to be broadcasting electromagnetic frequencies and millimeter waves from the 5G. And so I want to do the best I can to protect ourselves from that. And the nice thing about the house is we spend most of our lives are spent in our homes. And even more from that are in our bedrooms. So like, even if somebody's watching this and going, well, I can't afford all this to do my entire house, do your bedroom. And there's actually a lot of videos on YouTube of people doing this. A lot of people in Europe are doing this too. Like this is not unheard of. Mm-hmm. And if you can even just start with painting your bedroom. So it means you got to paint this black stuff in your bedroom, and then you can just do like whatever color you want over top of that. But it's doable. And like, there is something you can do to stop this like absolute onslaught. And so for me, I'm just a proactive person, and I don't want to just sit by and complain about the system and the state and all these corporations that have the ability just to railroad us without any accountability. I'm just like, what can I do now? And so that's what this is.
Mm-hmm. Well, as people I'm sure are going to obviously notice, you got quite the front yard garden going on here. So it's not just 5G proofing the outside, but you're food proofing, as it were, for yourself and your family on the inside too, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And we're always trying to do more and grow more food and do more. Our house is solar powered, and we're doing a lot there. And actually, it's interesting with the solar. Just as I think about it, a lot of people criticize solar for producing a lot of electromagnetic frequencies. And Ross Anderson, who I hired, who is a consultant who does EMF consulting, he actually looked at our house, and the solar actually doesn't do much. The cell tower that's 2 blocks away puts out way more electromagnetic radio frequencies, or whatever they're called, that comes to the house than the solar does. But once we have our mesh up underneath the roof, the solar inverters, which do produce a little bit of frequency, there'll be nothing at that point.
You have a good understanding of what's being laid down on the house right now. So why don't you start by just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about how you got involved in researching this whole field.
Okay, well, I started doing this work in electromagnetic radiation with my patients when I was a practicing naturopath in Ontario, which was for 30 years. And a number of patients who weren't responding to normal naturopathic care, it turns out, had electromagnetic issues in their homes. So I started studying that particular discipline, which was just barely in North America. It was coming out of Europe. Germany was the main thrust of knowledge in sick buildings and electromagnetic radiation, and so I started studying it. I got some now archaic and antique meters and started going into patients' homes if they were having challenges, and doing very simple things at the time, having them move to a different bedroom was one of the things that we had a few people do. I had people sell their house and move because the electromagnetic radiation in their home was so severe coming from power lines and things like that that they had to move. And once they had done that, their health improved dramatically, and I didn't need to work with them. The problem was electromagnetic. It wasn't toxic or an infection or something else that I would have looked after in my office. So a number of years ago, I moved to the Okanagan Valley and started up safe zone electromagnetic radiation inspections, and I've been doing that for a number of years now. Very sophisticated, very expensive equipment, which allows the client to see what they're being exposed to from things that they didn't even know produced wireless radiation. Wireless radiation comes in many forms. Most people know about the wireless that comes off of their smartphone, but they don't know about wireless that comes out of the wires in the walls of their house that can have a dramatic effect on them adversely. So consequently, here I am.
So it was it was the health issue that brought you into it, because you noticed people having health concerns with it.
Absolutely.
Is there there must be varying levels of sensitivity in people, and I guess it depends also on the proximity of how close they are to these towers?
The really important words in this discipline are proximity and cumulative. So proximity means how close you are to the radiating device. Most people know that if you hold your smartphone up to your head, it's going to have a dramatic effect on you if you do it long enough over a period of years. If you hold it out here on speakerphone, it has a significantly less powerful radiation because it diminishes dramatically with distance. So it's the same way with any other form of electromagnetic radiation. The closer you are to the source, the stronger it is because it dissipates with distance. The other word is cumulative, meaning the effects accumulate over a period of time. A smartphone isn't going to give you brain cancer in a year or a month. The really, really solid research shows that it takes 10 years of use before you are severely at risk, and your chances are fairly high for having something happen.
Well, I think it can be argumented now that it has been proven that these devices and these types of waves can have an adverse health effect. Can be bad for people's health. So that seems clear. Now they're talking about bringing on this 5G, and this is like a whole new level of new types of waves, really. So maybe we can get into a little bit of that. Tell us what do you know about 5G and some of the concerns that you have with it?
Well, strangely enough, 5G is not new. The frequencies involved in 5G, called millimeter frequencies, extremely short frequencies and very high frequencies in the many, many gigahertz range. These frequencies were used in military warfare. This is what they were developed for many, many years ago. And there are a number of authors who are ex-military who are making the public aware that these frequencies are very, very dangerous, and they're going to be used en masse on our population. We now have, I think, a couple of cities in the U.S. that have activated 5G. It'll be a complete overhaul. They're going to be putting towers, every 7 or 8 houses down the street, and of course on all the existing towers, and they plan on transmitting it from satellites. I believe they've put up over 1,000 of 20,000 satellites that they expect to have orbiting the Earth that will transmit the 5G signal. The problem with the frequencies is that they haven't been tested for safety on animals or humans. And those frequencies were used in military warfare. That's what they were initially developed for.
And I thought the job of the military is to fight an enemy.
Well, or defend against an enemy, one or the other. But crowd dispersal technology using these frequencies has been around for quite some time now and has been well tested. This is well documented on YouTube and with many, many other sources. People can do their own research. The big concern is that when they unleash, and I'm not going to say any other word, but when they unleash this on us, which is not very far off, that people who are already sensitive, and you mentioned that some people have different sensitivities, and that's absolutely true. But the more exposure we have, and that one word again, cumulative, comes in here, the more people become sensitive or hypersensitive to electromagnetic radiation. Right. And so now we have a significant percentage of the population that are suffering. A large number of those people don't know it because they don't connect the dots that it's the cell tower that's half a block away that went in 2 years ago, and they started to feel ill, and so consequently they don't connect the dots. Their doctors don't connect the dots. Yeah. So they never get that connection made so that they can actually do something about it. Right. This is what we're doing now. I mean, this house is being painted with special shielding paint because you can't see it from here, but just the other side there, you can actually see the cell tower on an apartment building not very far away. Mm-hmm. And when we did the inspection on this home, we found the readings inside the home were significant and way above what are called building biology safety standards. Building biology was the original discipline in electromagnetic radiation out of Germany. So the readings inside this house are way too high for comfort, and long-term exposure can lead to significant health challenges. So what we're doing with this house is we are shielding it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is amazing. A shield is a great way to put it because you've connected the dots that this is stemming from the military. I mean, let's face it, we know that they developed things like LRAD, the long-range acoustical device that was used in Baghdad, and then they brought it over to America and used it on crowd control against protesters. So back when I was talking about these things, they just called me a conspiracy theorist. They said I was fear-mongering, these things are never going to come here. But now it seems that we're being proven right? And so now I think that's why shielding this is a great way to describe it. Now let's get into the specifics about this house a little bit more. Tell us how the paint works, how it's going to work in conjunction with the ceiling, and how it can actually 5G proof one's home.
Well, the paint is a product out of Germany, and it contains nanographite particles, which is carbon, but a very specific form of carbon that has the ability to block radio frequency radiation at a level of 99.97%. I mean, that's pretty good. So when you paint a house like this, you change the internal environment by blocking those radio waves from coming in the house. It's just that simple. We're not just going to paint the house, we're actually going to put window film on the windows that also has the same effectiveness level, and we only lose 5% of the light. So you really don't even know it's there. So we're going to paint the walls, film the windows. This particular homeowner is also going to be re-roofing, so he's going to put a layer of material underneath the roof shingles to block the radiation coming in through the roof, which it will do quite dramatically. Radio frequency radiation goes through cracks and crevices and around corners and does all kinds of crazy things.
Right. And not on top of the health aspect, which you've already experienced, seeing people get sick with this firsthand, what can you tell us about the privacy issue? And because a lot of people think that this is going to be connected with something called the Internet of Things, and that these smart homes are eventually going to be connected with Big Brother. So what do you know about the privacy issues with 5G?
Well, yeah, the Internet of Things, like everything is going to be hooked up to the Internet. Right now, back in 2012, we got smart meters. Right. Why are they called smart meters? Because they're able to record the usage that you use, your power usage in your home. And everything has a power signature. So your dishwasher and your hairdryer have a different power signature, and they register differently, and that is recorded on the smart meter. Now, if the smart meter is transmitting, that information goes back usually once a day at 2 or 3 in the morning to the power company, and they know your habits. They know what you're doing. They know when you're watching your television, when you're using your computer. If you don't have a smart meter, if you have the radio off, that information is still recorded, and then they come out and retrieve that information. Now, the theory is that they are probably selling this information for whatever use, consumer habits, whatever. And so once this is enacted, and we now have what are called smart appliances, which will communicate with a specific frequency with the smart meter. And so your dishwasher, your television, your fridge are all going to be communicating information to the smart meter, which then will transmit that information back to the power company. The problem is that there's been a constant increase in the output of all of these forms of radiation, especially the radio frequency stuff. They're adding new emitters to the towers every single month. They're bumping up the power. As more and more people get smartphones, they have to have more power because they're communicating with thousands more smartphones. So it's just increased and increased and increased over the years. I got my first cell phone in 1993. It's a long time ago. You couldn't even use it outside of the city. Now, coverage is virtually everywhere, and the levels that we're being exposed to have increased dramatically and increase every single month. And so now people think it's normal. The technology has been what I call normalized. If you watch your favorite TV show, everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody's talking on the smartphone. And so it's become normal to people. You go to any big store and every third person is on the phone. You walk downtown and everybody's having a chat, walking down the street. So how could it possibly be dangerous, right? But if you look at the levels of health that people are experiencing, they've gone down dramatically as the increase in the technology has gone up dramatically, and they can be matched perfectly. The increase in Parkinson's disease, ALS, dementias of all sorts. All of these neurological diseases are increasing dramatically as the technology increases.
When we were outside in the back porch, the reading was 180 something, because that's the cell tower is over there. So we're just getting blasted with those frequencies. So that's dangerous and unhealthy. If you get below 5, it's considered healthy. And so when I guess the other things, actually, now that we're talking about it, the other things was dirty electricity. So Ross came around in our house and basically measured all of these things in the house, like sometimes just bad wiring gives off frequencies that are dangerous. And so we went in and cleaned up the dirty electricity. We had to rewire some outlets and stuff like that. We disengaged the outlets in our bedroom that are by our heads. So we basically flipped those off on the breakers. I mean, our bedroom is a place to sleep. So, like, do we even technically need electricity in our bedroom? Not really. And we've actually taken those steps. Like, we've actually just turned off the breaker of our bedroom, period. There's no electricity in our bedroom. Because we found that we don't need it.
What do you think the city is going to feel about this? The municipalities, the township of Kelowna, I guess you could say, the people who are under, being brainwashed by the UN to carry out Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. What do you think they're going to think of this? Because I mean, there's eventually going to be smart meters. They want to put them on all the houses.
We have one.
Yeah, so
we have our smart meter on radio off, and I have to pay $18 more a month for that feature, but it doesn't broadcast any frequencies. And I know this for a fact because Ross, when he was here, we read it, and it's not broadcasting any frequencies. So that's legitimate. So Fortis BC, they offer you that service. I was actually part of a big class action lawsuit that was trying to use legalese really creatively to go after Fortis and sue them for liability. The whole thing was a kind of a mess, but I've been involved in this stuff in that regard for a while. But what's the city gonna? I don't care what the city think. I mean, I know some of the city councilors and the mayor. I know by name, and they're nice. They're nice people. I don't think they'll care. I mean, it doesn't do any harm to them. My neighbors, for the moment, probably think I'm nuts for painting my house black, but it's going to be a dark green after this right away. So I don't think the city will have anything to say about it, really. I don't think they'll know. And I frankly don't think there's going to be any close of a critical mass of it to even get wind to them that people are doing this kind of thing. So I want to believe that the masses will switch on to this stuff, but I don't. I think it's a class thing. Like it's like eating healthy food too. Like, it's sad but true to say that, poor people don't eat organic food. It's just generally true. It sucks to say, but it's generally true. It's the same with this stuff. Like, people who don't have the means to care about these things won't care about them. And so that's the unfortunate reality. But I mean, you can get bummed out about that, but at the same time, like, I want to protect my family, so I'm going to take whatever means I can to do so.
Maybe that's what it takes for people to realize it at some point, is to have some children, and to realize that.
The game.
Right?
Yeah, like, and that's what it is. And I think our society is greatly suffering from a lack of skin in the game. And I think, Western people are just not having children, and you do not have a skin in the game investment in the future unless you have kids, really, in my opinion, because your whole world changes when you start to see things through their eyes and you want to protect them and give them at least the opportunities you had without making them a bunch of entitled little brats.
Yeah. Well, I can already tell your kids are going to have a huge advantage and a jump start moving forward, because they're getting the good food, they're not getting the vaccines, they're getting protection from the outside forces here that are trying to zap everybody, and it's going to be getting worse when 5G is eventually rolled out.
Oh,
so
full on. The whole thing that's crazy about the 5G stuff is that, and it's the same with the vaccines, is there's my daughter. There's just no real tests. There's no real safety tests. I mean, I don't want to divert too much, but like the vaccines thing is like, there is not a single study that's been published that compares kids that weren't vaccinated, period. So no vaccines versus kids that were. All they do is compare, oh, these kids had these ones, but not the MMR. And so they don't do real true studies. And it's almost the same thing with the cell signals, is that they won't publish real information that shows the studies. Because if you look at independent scientists who've done this stuff, including some of the ones that have worked in the Canadian military, like the one I went to see, he's got it all laid out. And so, but you have to dig for these things, because, and I don't, it's hard for me to speculate just as a citizen or whatever, a person living in this land. It's hard for me to speculate what are the intentions behind 5G. Is it to actually, push everybody towards this nefarious thing, something like Alex Jones might talk about or whatever? I kind of think it is, but I can't prove that. All I can go by is the evidence. And the evidence says to me that it's dangerous, and if I want to avoid the consequences on my children, because children have thin skulls, so they're a lot more susceptible to these kinds of signals. If I want to protect them, these are the steps I have to take. And so that's all I can really go on. Like, we could speculate about what the reason is for it until we're blue in the face, but I don't know if we really know. We can guess, but...
Yeah. It's really just not worth taking the chance. As you said, we're being played out as a bunch of guinea pigs here. And if you can, take the forward-thinking steps to do something like this, you're just better off, because, odds are it's going to be bad. Anything the government gets involved with to that extent usually doesn't turn out so well for our health, for our privacy and things of that nature. So we need to continue to decentralize. This is an amazing step towards doing that. Let people know where they can learn from you, because I'm sure, I'm going to continue to track this one. You're just putting on the paint now. You still got to do the roof. So there's a lot more to come. I'm going to continue to track this one as you continue to develop it. Yeah. So people are going to want to learn more about how it's going. Can they learn from you, and where do they go? Yeah,
I'll probably put a video or two, especially I'll definitely going to do a video with Ross, because he's just a wealth of information. So they can find me on my channel, The Urban Farmer. Just put that into YouTube and you'll find me. And I imagine we'll have you back in the summer when we're doing the roof, and then we'll do like a full analysis then and really see how much how that signal we're keeping out.
Awesome. I'm so looking forward to it. So excited about it. It's a brilliant idea, and I hope it catches on. Check the links in the description, and stay tuned for more on this 5G proofed house here with Curtis Stone, the Urban Farmer.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
We all want truth. The truth. set you free, free, free.